nice and tidy edited down video, but I have ways for you to make it faster. You can click that little gear on the YouTube settings right there on the video and adjust the playback speed, make me sound like a chipmunk, and it'll go a lot faster. You can also look and see if there's timestamps for this project in the description, and if you're on a desktop, you can hover over the time bar at the bottom of the screen and see if it's chunked up into chapters, and then that way you can go directly to the step you're looking for. And lastly, you can also tap on the screen on the right hand side of the video picture or on the left hand side to make the video jump ahead, forward or backward if you're on a mobile device. And you can adjust that amount in your settings so you can have complete control over how much it jumps. So if you are on a desktop, you can use the fast forward or the rewind, and that will make it go faster as well. You can also enable subtitles, and the little CC on the screen will enable closed captioning. That way, if I am a little bit harder to understand with that double playback speed, the subtitles might help you out. All right, well, I know that it's not a nice little edited video, but if you sew with me, we'll get there together and it'll be lots of fun. And now for the live stream. Happy sewing! Hi, were you guys having a sound issue? And can you hear me? Because I was too. Is it fixed? That's so odd because I saw my mic not moving and I ran out of time to test it. And I was like, oh no, is it working? Tell me you can hear me. How's it going? Sounds fine. Okay, cool. Great, great. We love to hear it. Let me take this like this here. Actually, I'm going to put this here and you over here. Nice, thanks. Okay, good. Thanks, Danny. I'm moving my chat over here, so. But what? Come on. What the heck? Honestly, Windows makes things complicated sometimes. All right. Oh my God, what are you doing now? Oh my goodness. Okay. Hello, hello, hello. Hi, Shem. I'm glad that fixed. Hi, Hannah. Hi, Charlie. And thanks again, Danny. Hi, Lisa. Hi, Susan, or Suzanne. Hi, Mullen. Hi, Kirsty. How's it going? Let's see who else I'm. Hi, Aisha. Hi, Margaret. Hi, Dee. Welcome, welcome. All right. I felt a little bit like yesterday's stream was a lot. And I feel like it's very clear that I, think of a project being one size when it's probably a lot bigger. And it's a little like I think, oh, this is great. This is the perfect shirt to start with. And I still think it is. But, it is a lot more steps than I feel like I was admitting to myself. So I apologize if it felt like it was a big project. And, it's very obvious the difference between a live stream and an edited video. I don't get the chance to hone it down and then edit it and make it a nice tidy package. But I also really love being able to answer questions and engage with you while we're doing some of these bigger projects like that. So that if you are doing it, you can ask questions. You can ask questions in the comments section too. So, hi Sue and Sue. How's it going? So today, I do have a lot planned today, but I feel like I'm going to do it in a nice smaller format. I think that this will be a little simpler viewed way. I'm going to go over a bunch of options for a camp shirt, and then after that, I'm going to draft my version using the block that I made yesterday. It's not technically a block, but it's my camp shirt block, for lack of a better description. And then I sewed up what I made yesterday, so you can see that. I made a few minor tweaks. I'm going to show you that and help you out along the way. Yeah, awesome, Mullen, thanks. You know what the other aspect was that it's been kind of weird. The weather's been really weird here and a little chilly, and it got so hot in my office. And for me, that just kind of makes me feel a little bit like, you know, when I'm on the camera. I have to keep my iron off in here now. So, all right, so we have a lot of options, and you guys gave me some extras yesterday. So the first one I wanted to show you was a gathered shoulder. I was going to try and sketch some of these things out for you, and I just ran out of time. I'm preparing for something tomorrow that I also made a little bit too ambitious. So I'll show you what I'm talking about with the gathered shoulder. So let's just say we have a camp shirt here, right? And we just want like a few light gathers coming from the shoulder, something like that, right? So something like that, you know, we're going to trace off our shirt here, and we can keep this really simple. There's a lot of ways to make this a little more complicated, but really, you really don't want a whole lot of gathers here. You're going to probably just want like maybe an inch extra. If you want a lot more, I would probably, you know, slice this off, pull it out, and then kind of blend it in. But the problem with this is you're going to be adding to your chest circumference here, right? Another way to do this is to pivot your dart up there. But the simplest thing to do is just to kind of extend the shoulder, just like that. And you could even cut this off. Let's keep our armhole the same, right? And then, oh, and I actually told myself I need to take all these off so I don't have a lot of pin marks down there. So let's do this a little nicer even. So what if we take out this shoulder here like that? I just moved that paper so we don't look at it. We can keep our armhole exactly the same, and we can, did it just not cut? We can pivot this over like this. And then this way we know that we have not changed our armhole at all, like that. I know that looks kind of crazy. And then when you go to kind of blend all this in, by the way, this is an inch on a, I think this is, oh, is this half scale? This might be half scale. So really, this is 2 inches. I'm pulling it out in real life, right? So if this were realistic proportions, we're talking something like that, right? So we tape it together, and then we're just going to kind of round this out like this. You want to round it out up here because you need some fabric to be able to, you need some length there because of the gathers. If it's too short, then it's going to pull up on the shirt a little bit because all those gathers and that fullness kind of create a little bit of thickness, right? So if we just wanted some gathers like this, you're looking at a pattern piece that looks like that. And I have my tape here somewhere. I have tape everywhere. It's probably a minor addiction considering. All right, so that's our gathers. I was about to just toss it and I was like, what if someone comes in a little bit? All right, tucks. Shem wants tucks. All right, so for tucks, I'm kind of into tucks, right? And say, we wanted some tucks down the front. So if we wanted to do a more of a traditional camp shirt like the guayabera or a Mexican wedding shirt or what's the other one? A Cubano shirt, a Cuban shirt, right? You're going to put some tucks in there. You know, and those usually have 2 pockets, right? Something like that. The tucks will be put on the pocket separately and then stitched on top of the shirt, on top of the tucks. So that's why you can see the continuation of the tucks going straight through, right? And then there's little dashed lines. Now, I just want to say one thing about what we call the tucks. These are not pin tucks. Pin tucks are literally just like these really tiny things, and the you know, the name is something along the lines of being, you know, the width of a pin, right? So we're not doing that. So we're doing tucks. So when people say pin tucks, they're usually meaning tucks. All right, so Gibberish. Yeah. Yeah, so if you have darts in your shirt, you're going to want them over here, and you're going to want to stay clear of those darts the best you can. So hopefully you can kind of keep your tucks in this range here. So if this is our finished placket edge, so make sure you know exactly where your placket is ending. So if this is your center front line right here, you know that this amount right here on the other side of the center front line is going to complete the width of your placket. So you need to make sure you acknowledge where that ends, because it's not going to be on your pattern piece. It's going to be sticking out over here, right? So make sure you denote where your placket ends. And then the simplest thing to do with tucks is just to slice a parallel line to your center front and slice it so that you are going to be spreading it apart so that you're accommodating the width of the finished tuck and the space between the tucks. All right, so let's say we want 1/2-inch tucks, and we want them to be exactly lined up to each other. So like a traditional guayabera shirt or a Cuban shirt or Mexican wedding shirt, the tucks are very, very close together. They're almost overlapping a little bit. And if Elena was here, we could actually ask her to confirm that for us, because she has a bunch of them. Yeah, that is actually true. They probably do that, Leah, especially because it's more economical to do that in a production setting. So, and what they use is they use a tucking machine to do that, a pleat machine to do that. So, hey, Sydney. I don't know if I said hi to you. So when I do my tucks, the first thing I do is I kind of do some sketches. You know, I'm like, all right, if I want my tucks, and then, you know, they're gonna push away from center front. And if this is a 1/2-inch right here, so the tuck itself is sticking, like it's fabric above the surface of the shirt. It has nothing to do to contribute to the circumference of your shirt, right? It is excess. So it can be as wide as you want, right? It's just when the next one occurs, you need to think about that. So if you wanted it to occur slightly under the fold of this tuck, right? Or maybe you want it 1/8 of an inch apart, I would recommend putting at least the width apart from each other, because that way you're not going to run into them while you're sewing them, because it's harder than you think, right? So let's put our next one right on top of, so this is our top stitch line, here's our next tuck, right? So we're just gonna put these like that. And so now we have this visual, right? So we know that this dotted line, this stitching line underneath the fold edge of this tuck is a 1/2-inch away from this one here. So these are a 1/2-inch apart. So then you can do your lines a 1/2-inch apart, and this is where you're gonna insert your tuck, right? And remember, I'm doing this at full scale, these changes to this pattern, when the pattern itself is only like 1/2 scale, I think, right? So you're gonna go all the way up. So these would only be like a 1/4 inch apart on this scale. And then I would slice your paper, and then I would add the width of the tuck that you want. And remember, if you want a 1/2-inch tuck, you want 1 inch of paper, and be really precise about this kind of thing, right? So you're just gonna slice up your pattern like this, all the way through, and add a piece of paper, separate them out. I'm just gonna keep this attached so that I don't have a lot of papers flying around here. Add in your 1 inch of paper between each one of these. Now for the top here, you probably aren't gonna wanna spend the time to shape this, like put the shaping back in. So what I would do is make sure you keep a copy of this pattern piece before you've added all your tucks, right? So have this, copy it off, make a tucked version, and then once you've sewn in your tucks, lay this pattern piece on top, trim your shoulder and your neck and your waist, and then you have your pattern piece now back at its neutral position and ready to be sewn with like pockets and your darts and things like that. If you're in the guild, we had where was that? I gave you a great tip on when you're marking your tucks, but my tip is to just iron the fold line of the tuck. So, you know, you have your paper, right? Here's a 1 inch of paper here. And then I would put a notch at the fold line, the middle of that tuck at top and the bottom. And I would just iron that and then, you know, sew it at the width parallel to the folded edge. And that's all the markings I would do. It's the easiest thing to do. Don't put a notch at every tuck, the width. You will get lost in all the notches, all right? You can pre-tuck the fabric. I feel like there's a lot of people who do that, but in my opinion, that the fact that you have to find where that's at on the fabric, pre-tuck it, and then do it, I just feel like that's, in some ways, it could be more wasteful. Hi, Donna. Jan. That's deep, huh? Hi, Julie. Hey, wait, how do I say your name? Maboba? How's it going? All right, so that's how you're gonna add tucks. I'm doing a little quick and dirty things here, so. All right, what's our next one? Oh, a slip placket. All right, so like I've told you, I'm gonna be doing a pullover version of my camp shirt. All right, so the pullover version I'm gonna do, all right, the pullover version I'm gonna do is gonna have what I call a popover placket. So that means it's gonna have a actual physical placket, like a button band here. I'm probably gonna put a point, and it's gonna look like that, right? Yeah, exactly, Susan. Yeah, and if I had to draft that professionally for someone, I would absolutely have to put in all of those jagged lines, and it's fine, it's doable. But when you do that in a home sewing setting, I just feel like it's too intimidating to put all that in there, and then worry that you didn't get it quite right. When I do it, and I've drafted a couple of tuck shirts on here, I just leave it loose on the top. Woven. I'm talking only wovens for all of these, Jan. Yeah, thanks for that. That's a good question. All right, so this little popover, I feel like my camp shirt's going to resemble a little bit like a polo shirt by the end, and that's fine. It's going to be an eyelet. It'll be fine, right? All right, so this is my popover placket. So we know of now, I'm going to, once I show you this little tutorial, there are 3 versions. So you have the Donny by Friday Pattern Company. Theirs is a pullover, and it looks different. It has a seam down the center front, and it has a notched collar. So you can't button that collar all the way up to the top, right? Hi, Chantel, how's it going? Yeah, exactly, Mullen, especially in a linen. Yeah. So, and that shirt is so cute. I love the idea of making a pullover version. It's really cute. So I just thought I'd give you other options since you could get theirs if you want that pullover option, right? So this is the one I'm going to draft on mine later today or later in the stream. So the other option is, what if, because I know I'm going to get asked, this is why I'm saying this, what if you had just a slit, right? So what if you wanted a fold? You want your center front on the fold. You don't want a seam there. Mine won't have a seam. This one doesn't have a seam. So here's the deal. This is why Friday Pattern Company didn't do this, I'm pretty sure, is because when you do a slit like this, what happens is you lose this fabric right here when you cut it out. So say this is your pattern piece, this is your center front, right? This is your front neckline, this is your center. You slit down into the fabric with your scissors, you just cut. Now, on either side of that slit, you've lost seam allowance. So you have the 1/4 of an inch on either side, right? So now your placket is minimum 1/2 inch apart at the finishing edge right there. And that means your collar is also not going to be finishing where it was originally intended, which was to meet at the center front neck. It's going to be a 1/2 inch apart. Totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But that is what you're talking about if you would like a simple pullover version. You just want like a little slit. You're going to, your collar's never really going to meet right there. You could put like a little button loop, right? And a button under the collar and then button it up. And what you'll get, you know, you can button it closed. And your placket will kind of do this little like rounded thing like this. You know, I'm exaggerating with my hands, like if this is the slit. It'll kind of raise up a little bit, right? So, and I'd done that. Like I did that on a top that I drafted in the green plaid. I did this exact thing. I made a Peter Pan collar, slit placket with a button and a loop, and it's fine. It lays fine. Yeah, it's not like perfectly flat and it's not perfectly meeting, but that no slit plackets do. You could also, for a fun little idea, this is what you see with these little plackets, is there's usually like a little tie, and you tie a bow there, right? That would be kind of silly with the the camp collar, but I'm here for whatever iterations you want. There's a lot of options you could do there. So let me show you how to do the slit placket. The faux, well, it'll have a camp collar look. I mean, the camp collar is like not trying to look like a notch collar. So when you, and you're talking about my button placket, it's going to operate just like a polo shirt or a camp shirt. It doesn't really matter. A polo shirt is a knit collar, but essentially it meets at the center front, and you use a button placket. So a notched collar is a notched collar. Camp collar is a camp collar. Camp collars meet, notched collars don't. Is that what you mean? All right. So for the slit placket, I have a little dot here because this is my center front, right? I'm just going to do a really light line right here. You're going to want to decide how deep you want that finished slit. And okay, Leah. Well, if you think of a way to give me an example, let me know. I want to be able to answer it. So for this slit here, you know, I would kind of, you know, find where you want that to be, you know. I think I start with like a 4-inch amount. So let's do this to scale here. So that would be like right here, right? I mark my pattern like this. And that's all you're going to do to your pattern. You're going to put a notch here and then a stopping point right here. And if I were drafting this professionally, the pattern would look like this. I would cut around the perimeter and then I would cut out this line. I would go up to the stopping point, up to the stopping point. Let's cut out the neck. There's nothing like using a little tiny rotary mat and it slides around on the table. Or a dull knife. Okay, this is that. And then I cut that off. And so that's what my pattern piece would look like. There'd be a gap there and I would just trace straight down. Now for your facing, you're going to want to draft a facing. And I like my facings about 2.5 inches wide. So we'll draft this one like that. So I'm doing this 2.5 inches away from this edge here, and we're going to do this same down here and same below this section here, just like that, right? And now we're going to round these corners. Most people are going to use a serger or an overlock to go around this, and that's why you need these nice smooth transitions. If you're going to hem or bind it, you can do that too. Hi Elena, how's it going? Hey Elena, I have a question. For your Mexican wedding shirts, are the tucks sort of overlapping, like the fold edge of a tuck covers the stitching of the tuck next to it? Elena has a really beautiful array of these shirts. She shared in the guild. All right, and you can, let's see, I would normally do this exact same little slice in my facing as well. Cut it on the fold. And then you'd have your facing, and that's all you need for the slit placket. Now for your collar, remember we drafted a collar yesterday. Here's your center back right here, right? This little edge where the seam allowance is, that's your center front. And so what you're gonna do is you're gonna trim off the seam allowance that you've allowed right here, which I highly recommend 1/4 inch. Don't do more than that. You're gonna have a really wide gap. The bigger the seam allowance, the bigger this gap gets, right? So just bear that in mind. And if you want a really big gap like that, I would cut it away and use 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm reading about the ones that have the Pintucks strip that's then sewn on, or the ones with the Pintucks are incorporated into the shirt pieces, or both. I was just kind of curious if the tucks overlap on the stitching so you don't see the stitching of the tuck next to it. I don't want you to go into any trouble. I was just kind of curious if they do, and is it a lot? Because they look a little bit like they're very tight together. On the pattern I have, the tuck comes up too, but doesn't overlap the tuck next to it. Yeah, exactly, Susan. But on these, do you have one of these shirts then, the Guiabera shirts? Okay, so last little thing you need to do here is you need to trim off that amount. So we're going to trim off 1/4 inch off each of these edges. Just do a parallel line straight down. Do this to your under collar. You're good to go. And then when you sew this, here's one of my little sewing tips. I'll probably give you a tip on each one of these. When you come around here, so let's sew with a, I don't have to have another color. I'll just use one of these. Here we are, we're sewing around our neck, right? Pivot down here. Okay, so when you get here, you're gonna go straight down kind of at an angle, right? Like a V. Go 1 stitch across, like this. Don't go 2 here and then pivot and go up. Go 1 stitch across and then go back up like that. You'll get a much nicer point at the bottom. I know, as counterintuitive as that sounds. If you need to clip up to that stitch because you were kind of far away from where it ended, the slit ended, that's okay. Cut up to it. But you'll also get, and also tighten your stitches, your stitch length. So make much smaller stitches in this whole area here. And then you can revert back to your regular stitch length. But that 1 stitch across, you're going to thank me for that. It's key. Twins in the shirt, the ones with the densely packed tucks, the ones with 12 overlap, so you only see the stitching on the outer. Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. Very cool. Yeah, okay, Susan, yeah. So sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. I would do what you guys like. I think it's a lot easier to sew at home, spacing your tucks so at least that the fold edge butts up against to the stitching, if not further away, because you can make them further away too. Oh, okay, 10. There's 10. See, the traditional shirts also probably don't have dart shaping, so they don't have to keep those tucks kind of in that area between the end of the dart and the center front. All right, so this is slip placket. That was a slip placket. All right, so what's our next one here? Back neck facing. All right. So let's say that you don't have a yoke, which would be a traditional camp shirt, right? And you don't like sewing the way the camp collar sews. It only has a front facing. Yeah, exactly, Elena, yeah. Yeah, so putting like 10 tucks in there, woo. So amazing though. You can, if you're just like, look, Saremy, I know you're going to show me a little trick on how to sew the camp collar, and you're telling me it's going to be easier and it's going to come out good. I don't care. I'm over it. I've sewn these before. I don't like it. I had a bad time, and I really want my camp shirt to come out really nice. I don't blame you at all. Like, no shame in that at all. In fact, I like the look of a back neck facing sometimes because it's really nice when it's hanging on a hanger. If you were giving this as a gift, you know, you can then, and you don't have a back yoke, you know, you can sew your label onto it or something cute like that. So when it's hanging on the hanger or whatever, right? So I think you guys all know how to draft a facing, and we drafted the front facing yesterday. So whatever width you picked for your front facing at the shoulder, you're going to do the same thing on your back. So let me show you here. My back is on the fold. And just also to say this, you wouldn't put a back facing on top of a yoke. That's going to be a lot of fabric back there, and it's probably going to hang a little bit rumply because of that extra layer of fabric in there. So I would only put a back neck facing on if you don't have a yoke. So, all right, so if my front facing was 2.5 inches wide. I'm going to square out here, and I'm going to do the same thing. You know, just kind of follow this here. Now, when you get down here, you can just do the same width all the way around, but I think it's a little nicer and a little classier when you make this a little deeper. So maybe make it like 3 inches deeper. Not 3 inches deeper, but we'll just make it a little deeper at the center back like this. And now take your front facing, and I want you to line it up as if it's sewn. Like I want you to overlap it and sew it to the shoulder or lay it on there. And check this transition right here, all right? And same with right here. And then, you know, you've got this on the fold, cut it out, and you're good to go. So that's your back neck facing. All right. All right, so now we're getting into some sleeve options. On mine today, I'm going to show you how to draft the Popover Placket, like I showed you the stitched one with a button band. I'm also going to show you how to add a yoke. What was the other thing I'm going to do? I'm going to do something else. Oh, goodness. So that's why you're not seeing that demonstrated here, because I'm going to show you on the real pattern. So when I do mine. All right, so here's sleeveless. Now, if you're in the guild, the community I have, and you're a Journeyist member or a Master Group member, you have access to the sleeves guild building session. And there's a bonus at the end of that on how to convert a pattern from sleeved to sleeveless and sleeveless to sleeved. There's also a tutorial on how to make a sleeve, like a set-in sleeve to a cut-on sleeve or a dolman style sleeve. And or no, it's actually the reverse. I took a dolman sleeve, I took the Cali shirt, and I converted it to a set-in sleeve. That's what it was. Sorry. I'm going to show you how to do a cut-on sleeve kind of quickly today, too. All right, so here is the sleeveless version. So this sleeveless version is assuming you're not using a dropped shoulder. So meaning we did not extend the shoulder here. You're not usually going to use a drop shoulder for a sleeveless. Now you could if you were kind of going for that 80s muscle look and you want to extend the shoulder off of the end of your shoulder, that's fine. You can do that, but most applications are going to use a sleeveless shirt. Your shoulder is landing right on your shoulder up there, right? And so for your armhole here, we're going to go up a 1/2 inch and in a 1/2 inch. That's it. All right, so you're going to go up a 1/2 inch and in a 1/2 inch, and then you're going to blend it in with your armhole. And then from here, I would shut my dart. Where's my, there it is right there. Shut my dart like this. And then I would blend this new side seam. I've been breaking all my rulers in half, so I have my favorite ruler, but in a smaller length, to the waist like that. And so we've gotten rid of, we got rid of this right here, and we went up. And so what this does is it kind of takes out that ease that your sleeve needed, and it will also give you more modesty there. If you just don't cut the sleeve and then you use the same armhole, sometimes that works. And I see patterns sold where there's no difference between, they'll have like, we have a sleeveless view and there's no difference in the armhole. Sometimes that just doesn't work though, because your bra will be very, very visible on the inside if you wear something like that. And it will feel a little gapey, right? So it's very easy to do. It's the same if you want to make a sleeved version. You go down and out, or up and in. So that's it for sleeveless. You can do that on anything. As long as it's a set-in sleeve, you're good to go. All right, Mullen, sleeve cuff. All right, so we're going to, so this, let me draw you a little picture of this. I didn't draw a picture of sleeveless, sorry. So a sleeve cuff. So I'm thinking too much. All right, so we have a very exaggerated sleeve cuff there. Like that. So Mullen, do you want a cuff that rolls up, right? That's what you want, like a traditional style cuff that you would roll up, right? Because that's the one I'm going to show you, as opposed to a sleeve band, which I can also show you guys if you want, but I think that's a little more straightforward. So for the sleeve cuff, you need to know what your sleeve length is, all right? So we'll say that the sleeve ends, I need enough room on my paper here to do my demo. So we'll do this right here. And we're gonna make a perpendicular line. I'm gonna cheat and fold my grain line. I line up my grain line like that, and then that'll give me a straight line across. You learn a lot of cheats for things like that. So this is my finished length of my sleeve cuff. I might stumble on this one because I haven't done this in a while. I know exactly what it needs to look like. It's gonna go like that. So let's say we want our cuff rolled up. Okay, cool, great. Let's say we want our cuff to be, what do we think? We want like 1.5 inches wide. We don't want a 2-inch cuff, right? This is 2 inches, maybe something like that. Or do you want smaller? Let's say, let's say we'll make it 1.5 inches wide finish. That's still kind of big. I think 1.25 inches would be better, right? I don't know. So let's see, let me figure out the version here. All right, so we're going to draw a parallel line to that sleeve ending, the finished amount of our cuff, right? Just like that. Now the easy thing to do, since we're home sewists and we're using paper that you can fold, would be to fold it right like that, right? So line up your grain line, get a nice straight across grain. And now we're gonna fold that again on that line just like that. And now you can see how the underarm is further in. This is why you need to draft this, because if you just try and cuff a sleeve that has any kind of taper at the hem, it's not going to stay cuffed. It's too tight. It's not going to be able to stretch across this length here. That's like a full inch difference if I do the you know, conversion from a 1/4 scale pattern or a 1/2 scale pattern to a full scale. And that's just too tight. It'll just kind of slip down and your cuff will come undone. So you're going to want to line this up. So if you want a different hem circumference, now's the time to do it. So let's say we put it there. Let's say we stick with our underarm length here. This is just, that's purely subjective. Like you can pick whatever you want, just like that. And then now we're going to cut along this edge here. And we're going to put the length that we want, and we want pretty much double this amount here because we need it to fold once and then fold again. And if you need, like, say you want ear. Yeah, exactly. Say you would like to turn under the edge and stitch it down, you need to add seam allowance from this point on, right? So right now, all we have here is enough to make our cuff. So if you would like a little edge to turn under and stitch down, you need to add that like a 1/4 inch. Or if you're gonna overlock it, you can leave it just like this. So I'm gonna add a 1/4 inch seam allowance because I like, you know, clean finishing things. But if you're overlocking, you don't need that. And then there we go. So now we have our first fold right here, the first ear right there. You would fold this up just like that, just once. And now stitch your cuff down. And then, oh, and plus, you know, remember, you put it in the round first. Cut it in the round first, or I mean, sew it in the round first. So sew your underarm seam, right? And then fold it along that first line. So if you got to remind yourself, make sure that you know that you're folding it there. Stitch it down, and then now you're done. That's it. And it'll stay up there. And if you want, you can kind of tack it, like stitch in the ditch on your underarm, but you probably won't need to. It'll probably be really good. So yeah, there you go. See, it looks like that, and the shaping on the sides there. You can see it going out, just kind of like a dart. All right. Yeah, it's not hard to do. I remember when I first learned how to do that for trousers. Trousers are the exact same way, by the way. If you like a cuff on your hem, your pant hem, or your trousers, exactly the same thing. The only thing you might want to consider, like if you want to start like kind of taking your pattern drafting up a notch or something, is sometimes they'll draft this last little section here a little bit shorter, and that's so that when this is all stitched down, your cuff is going to cover up that stitch line. So if you would like that stitch line to be kind of buried down here in your sleeve, maybe don't add that little bit of seam allowance if you turn it under, or trim off a little if you're just overlocking, stitch it down, and it'll get hidden by your fold, especially on trousers. All right, I have one more here for you. I've got a cut-on sleeve. Let's hope I can demonstrate this better than I can a camp shirt sleeve. All right, so we have, where am I starting? Here's our cam collar. My camp shirt is so big. Oh my God. Let's get a little smaller. So let's say we just want a no armhole sleeve with, you know, linebacker shoulders. That looks pretty bad, doesn't it? We'll put a little cuff on it. Maybe a little band or something like that. And this would be more of a like this. So let's illustrate this better, just all around better. I'm just keep making this so gigantic here. So let's say you want to cut on sleeve like this, right? You could put a band here. You could do the cuff we just did. Incidentally, for a cuffed sleeve, if the sleeve itself at the hem is perfectly perpendicular from hem and the underarm seam for the entire stretch of the folded part, you don't need to do that little ear part, right? You just need some notches so you know where to fold it. So, all right, so here is a cut-on sleeve. You know, what if it's hemmed? You know, we could put our cuff on here. That looks terrible, but you get the idea. So let's see if we can do a cut-on sleeve. All right, so I have my sleeve here. So when you look at a sleeve, if this is the front, you look at your front of your sleeve, you have your notch, and you have usually, you know, a little notch right here, like that. So on your sleeve, there's usually also a shoulder notch, right? So if we put in our seam allowance here, if you're a new pattern drafter, I highly recommend working without seam allowance. It is so vastly easier to do because then you don't have to sit there and do all this little mental math and keep track of that kind of thing. When I first started, that's how they taught me, it was without seam allowance. And when in home sewing, you kind of skip that whole spot, like that whole like phase of learning to pattern draft. And it makes it a lot easier if you just kind of get rid of all your seam allowance and then do all your drafting. So how wide, do you mean, where do you mean your width? Where's the width that you're talking about? Do you mean the hem circumference? So I was gonna give you a little bit of tip about that. So, all right, so you see how we have our grain line here? Remember, our shoulder is a little forward of that grain line. So let's draw in, you know, where this is actually at, right? So the shoulder. And we're gonna line that up with our shoulder here, right? We're gonna overlap our seam So this is why I say, like, if you don't have seam allowance, it's a lot easier. So we're gonna line this up. We're lining our shoulder and our notch. And, you know, I'm just usually gonna pull this down a little bit. I'm gonna kind of just take my underarm here and kind of get it to line up with the side seam like that. So I am also not a cut-on sleeves biggest fan, and you all know that. So, you know, I like a little bit more room, but it does create a little bit more bagginess. Yeah, so you're never gonna get away from some of the armhole issues that you get. So that's just how it is. All right, so let's fold this in half, or actually I have my little holes here, right? So that's the grain line, so it's a little further away. And we'll just do that. And all right, so we roughly have our kind of our slope here. Now, a lot of times what people will do is they'll kind of curve this a little bit and kind of give you a little bit of a shoulder slope here, something like that. And look at, I'm using this line in relation to the finished line here. I'm not doing it in relation to the cut seam, so you could do it in relation to the cut seam, something like that. Now, one of my favorite cut-on sleeves, and one of the only ones I ever make, is the Deer and Doe by Mellow, because they have a very tight circumference around the hem. It is a little tight, so if you make that shirt, check the band circumference before you cut out your fabric. You most likely will want it a little longer, because I always have to feel like I have to tug my shirt a little bit when I put it on, because at first it's like, oh, that's kind of tight. So you want, if you want a cut-on sleeve to sit on your body and your shirt not choke you and pull you to the back, you're gonna want that sleeve to be closer fitting, and you're gonna want more shoulder slope. Yeah, so find your sleeve length, and I would measure from your center back, right? So here's your center right here. Measure here to where you want your sleeve length to be. And then you're gonna blend this in with your armhole. Sorry, I'm like way low right there. Something like that. So this red line is our sleeve. And I would decide where you want this to end, measure on your body what that circumference is, and if you really want a loose boxier shape, you're gonna drop this down, and you may have to pull out your shirt a little bit, but most likely you can just kind of sync it up with your side seam here. If you want a closer fitting band around your arm or hem or something like that, then kind of keep it, I'd give yourself like an inch ease, because your arm moves a lot during the day. An inch might not be enough for some of you who are muscular. You might want a little bit more ease, because when you're flexing and stuff like that, the bicep is a really, it moves a lot during the day. Like, it flexes a lot. So you want a little bit more space. So, oh really, Aisha? They do it without the sleeve? I mean, I am using a bodice block, but yeah. So something like that, and then make sure you add all your seam allowances in, and you're kind of good to go. You don't have all this here, and you have this cut-on sleeve. Make sure you get kind of the right angle situation going on here, like that. So that's a very quick and dirty way to do a cut-on sleeve, but it'd be really cute on your camp shirt. I think the Mellow would be a really cute silhouette for a camp. You could actually take the Mellow, put a camp collar on it, and you'd have a kind of a cute stylized way to have a camp shirt. It has a side dart. It has a swoopy hem, so you could even straighten the hem, and I would do the center front and center back length, use that because it's pretty high on the sides, the swoop, kind of like the Cali shirt. I feel like the Mellow fits better than the Cali for me. But I think that's due to the arm circumference of the Mellow. It's just tighter. I think that helps, because then it helps that your garment isn't slipping to your back. You know what I mean? So if you've ever wore a shirt, and a lot of companies draft patterns without a set-in sleeve, so meaning there's no armhole like this. It's like a cut-on sleeve like this. And if you're wearing a shirt and it's always slipping back and choking you, and you're always having to pull it and pull your shirt down like this, that's because you've lost all your shoulder slope here, and you've lost an armhole. Because remember, your armhole, like if we were to look at our side view of you, right? And so this is the shoulder, neck, here's your side seam, and your arm comes out here, right? Here's your arm. Here's your hand, looking like a Muppet. So you have this hole and you have space across it. With a cut-on sleeve, you do not have that. It's flat. Like you've lost the hole for your arm. It's a flat piece, and that's why it's not very comfortable and it slips to your back. So, all right, so that's all of the little demos I have for you. We're gonna go over to the pattern table, and I'm gonna do a couple more, but I'm gonna do it on my pattern. So let's see here. Let's adjust the camera while I'm over here. How are you guys doing? You guys have any questions? Let me switch my monitor around. Leave my there. Do I need any of this over here? Just my water and the Sharpie. And I'll show you the one that I made. Oh, I really didn't get that right. Here's my fancy way to adjust my camera. Use a ruler. Wrong way. Shoot. It's always the opposite. My camera shows me what you see. So it's not like a mirror. All right, we'll leave it like that for now. Okay. Oh, that's too much. Wait, I want to do it this way, right? Yeah. There we go. Okay. So I made up my camp shirt yesterday. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. And I'm really pleased with how it went. So what I decided to do was cut my front on the fold, on the center front line, and just see like, all right, how are we doing with this pullover idea I'm having with my body? Because, you know, you have your own fit issues, right? So I did that. I cut out a little placket because I also was like, I'm just going to cut out the placket hole so that I can kind of see, is this how long I want this? Is it enough to get it over my head, which is really important, right? So here's my little camp collar, and all I did was cut the top collar, and then I sewed it on the inside, so the inside has a clean seam, and then flopped it over just to make sure that it's all working good. I forgot to cut my back on the fold, so it has a center back seam. I have my little hem vent here. I have my drop shoulder and my dart, which I'm not thrilled with, but this is a used bed sheet. So I'm pretty happy with how it's hanging. So the changes I made where I shortened it by 1 inch. I made a list. I'm like, what did I do? Shortened it by 1 inch. After I made this one, I rotated my cap forward. This is a very common fit issue for me. So like the ball of my shoulder is like right here, and I can even kind of see it on my form. My shoulder, if you remember towards the end of the stream, I showed you how forward the shoulder is on this particular shirt because I used the Archer button up, and that shoulder seam is really far forward, and it was part of a yoke. And I showed you that amount because that's why my back armhole is really long. And it doesn't bug me. I'm fine with it. It's very much kind of great for me because the forward ball of my shoulder is kind of better for that. So I was going to kind of take it out, and I was like, I'm going to leave it. I filled in my back armhole a little bit. That's another common thing for me. And it's not balanced. It's not shown on here. I straightened my sleeve hem too. So I straightened out, I got rid of the curve there, and that's because of my lift, because my underarm is longer because I added the lift. I decided just to make this straight down. So those are the 4 things I did. And I balanced that shoulder line, which I'm going to show you how I did that too. Hey Terry, how's it going? We're just getting down to where I'm going to draft my own shirt. So remember when I pinned this on here And, or no, what I did was I did this. I'll show you. This is how you always want to compare like the actual length of your garment. You're going to put the armhole where it sews together. You're going to line up the centers. And even if this doesn't reach over, that's fine. Just put it at the same level. Line up your centers, right? And then you can fold down your back shoulder to know like where the shoulder line actually is. Your shoulder seam is not your shoulder line. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But wherever this folds, right? If this is sewn here and you've got your centers lined up, this you're making your armhole complete, this is how your garment's gonna hang. It's gonna hang from this point. See, this is how far forward my shoulder is. Yesterday you probably saw that this was way over here, like this back shoulder was kind of shifted this way. So I split the difference and lined these two up to make it a little bit more balanced and kind of looking nicer on the pattern. So, and I looked at it, like I held the pattern up on my form and I was like, all right, if I do that, am I gonna change something I don't wanna change? Like what's happening here? Because what it was looking like was like this. When I folded it like this, it was looking like that. And I was like, well, that's weird. When this is sewn, it's gonna do this, right? Now, some pattern companies, they like to make their shoulders, they're not parallel like this. They're more at an angle like this. They're still parallel. They're still parallel. They're just at an angle, a different angle. Is that what is that what I mean? I don't do it that way. That's just a style that people choose as a pattern drafter. Yes, Suzanne, I would. If you're really wanting to get into pattern drafting, I would. I think it's so much faster and easier. And if you ever make like a block or a sloper, you'll want to have that block or sloper half the time without seam allowance. So you might as well just keep off your seam allowance. I'm going to move my camera a little bit. So anyway, your pattern probably won't have this little shoulder issue, but I just thought I'd show you that I did fix it and that's how I did. And also just to kind of demonstrate that this is the length of my garment from here to there. Don't measure from here to there, measure from here to there. And that's the true length, your center front length. Not from here, your neck, only from your shoulder at your high point of your neck right here. That's the true length. All right. I also transferred all these pattern pieces to manila, because now I have my own camp shirt block, which is kind of fun. And the changes I'm going to make, I'm going to do a yoke with gathers in the back, but I'll also show you how to do it with a pleat if you want. And I'm going to do the popover placket. So I don't need to change my sleeve. We can set that aside. I'm not going to need the facing. I will have to, no, I won't have to make any changes to my collar. So all I really need are these two pattern pieces, my front and my back. So let's, what do you think of this lining, or this lighting? I feel like it could be better. But if I make it too bright, it'll be hard for you to see. I felt like putting it on manila is gonna help. This pattern paper is too short. I thought I had a longer one. Goodness. We're really cutting it close. All right, so we're gonna do the back first. Okay, good. Lighting looks good, all right. All right, first thing you always do, okay, and you can tell also that I always put all my pattern pieces that are cut on the fold, I put them on the fold. I know that seems really extravagant as from a paper source, but it's just so much nicer to be able to open out your pattern pieces. If you can't do it on like big ones, do it on your small ones. They're even more important, like yokes, collars, facings, anything small and on the fold will be so much easier to cut if you can just take that little piece and put it anywhere on your fabric if you don't have fold available. And anything narrow, especially things that are narrow like that, are a lot easier to keep symmetrical and consistent in the size if you aren't putting it on the fold, like if you're actually opening out the pattern piece and cutting it. So that's just one of my little pattern drafting things that I like, and I still hold to, even though my pattern paper supply is getting pretty low and I just really don't want to spend on a new roll of it. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do, we're gonna trace off our pattern. And let's decide how deep we want our yoke. So your yoke from your back neck to the bottom of your hem, or usually it's to your waist, it's about 20% of that length, but you can put whatever you want, right? So I'm gonna look at my form here. And I think like right about here, kind of the crest of my shoulder blade right here, I think I would like it to end about right there. So like right, do I want to put Sharpie on this? I don't want to wear this, right? We're going to put it like right here. Like right there. And then we're going to measure from our neck seam here. And that's like 4 7/8. So we'll just round it to 5 inches. That sounds like a very standard yoke amount. So remember when you're measuring down from your pattern, if it has seam allowance, yeah, absolutely. It makes a big difference. Make sure you include that in the length there, right? So we're going to trace our pattern piece to that point. We're going to square across just like that. Wait, let's put make sure we have our square on the paper down here too. Just like that. And then mark it on your pattern if you are okay with that. You don't have to use Sharpie, you can use a pencil. And now what I'm going to do, because I've done this so many times, I'm going to draw my yoke right now. I'm going to put it 1 inch away because that's the seam allowance between these two. So they'll share a cut line. These are just little tricks you get when you're doing a lot. All right, so we can keep this on this line here. And we're going to line that yoke length up with our line over there, and we're going to trace it off. I did this also to save paper because I knew I was cutting it real close there. All right, so now we have our yoke. And we want to add, I want to add some gathers on this back part here. Make sure my vent is clear. So I'm going to cut my yoke off like that. So if you would like to do a pleat, there are a couple of ways to do this. You can do the pleat all the way down the center back, but most of the time they will just pivot it out. I need some paper. So let's cut a little piece of paper here. Well, do I? What do I want? I should have traced this at this end of my paper so I had space. Because the easiest way to add the gathers really is just to add it at the center back, right? So let's decide how much gathers do we really want. I think that's the other thing I was thinking about when I was looking at the fit of my sample was, all right, I'm going to add gathers to the back of this. Let's look at this really quick. You don't, Julie? You will, I promise. So I was looking at the back and like, I like that it's hanging away from my body because I have this hip tilt. Like I can go pretty far in there. You know, if I wanted princess seams, I could have done that look, or maybe some little darts there, right? But what I'm going for is kind of more of a sportier, kind of cute look, and I want that yoke with the gathers to come across the back. And I want the gathers to actually go from probably like here to here, kind of mostly across the back, not just in the center. Maybe like right here. Maybe like between the princess lines, right there. Let's measure that. Kind of between the shoulder blades, basically. So it's like 4 inches on each side. So now we know where we want them to end. I'm going to put a notch on my yoke, which tells me all of that excess needs to, no, sorry, that excess is going to sew between the notch and the center back on the yoke there. So this is going to be the width of my gathers. You know, and if I had kind of done this, eyeballed it without looking at it on a dress form, I probably would have placed this notch a little further over. So I'm kind of surprised that that's where this lands on the yoke. It really goes to show you, like, my armhole's probably like right here, and this is hanging off a little bit because of the drop shoulder, and that it's wrapping around the body. And so you kind of lose some of the length of your yoke because it's a little bit deceptive, you know. All right, so as far as the gathers go, you really don't want to put more than like 2 times the distance. I'm not going to put that much. That's a lot. Getting double your fabric into that section is quite a bit. So what would that mean? If I measured this 4 inches here and I added another 4 inches out here, that means all of this shirt would have to fit into this amount here. We're not going to do that. We're going to do something like 1.5. Tried and true, Sue. I used to have to ask that all the time too, because when I would work with Helen's Closet, she would say that all the time to me. And I finally had to ask the guild, like, you guys, can you tell me what TNT means? Helen from Helen's Closet keeps saying that to me, and I don't know what it means. Tried and true just means like the pattern you have, that you are like, you rely on it, you know it really well, you know what to expect, it's tried and true. So that's all that means. All right, so if we're going to put 1.5 gathers here, that would mean that we're going to add 2 inches, because 4 inches and then half of that more is another 2 inches there. So we're going to add 2 inches out the center back, because we already have the 4, right? We have, let's put this notch on here, right here. So we're going to match, when we sew this, all of this matches up to here, and then between the notches matches itself. And we're also going to put a center back notch too, so we kind of have a halfway point. All right. So let's just add 2 inches. If you wanted this to be a pleat, you can convert that to a pleat as well. You could put several pleats. Several pleats would be really cute, actually. Like a few tucks right here. Oh, that'd be really cute, actually. I like that idea. Kind of give it like a Balenciaga look. All right, so let's square across the bottom and the top, and that's pretty much all we're going to do. This is also cut on the fold. We're going to want a notch right here at the center back. You always want those like halfway points. We want this one, and we want a halfway here as well. And this is on the fold as well. You want a center back neck notch as well. And that's about it. So if you want a pleat, you're going to add that amount to the center back, or what you can do is do it at an angle. So let's say we traced our shirt, right? We traced our shirt around, we have our line here, and now we decided I'm gonna add I would like a 1.5 inch wide pleat. You're going to mark that 3/4 of an inch away, which is half your amount. Hold it down here, slide it over, and then now you're going to trace your new center back line and blend that yoke line there. It's going to be slightly rounded. You don't have to have it rounded, actually. Mine are always rounded. Yours can be straight. So that's another way to do it if you want. You're going to see that more typically on a men's shirt, with the pleats going to be pivoted like that. And that's because they don't need the volume at the hips as most women do. So, all right. So we have our back with gathers and a yoke. Easy peasy. So now we're going to do the Popover Placket. All right, so this is also going to be on the fold. And I have my center front notch right here on my pattern piece. Remember, I don't have the facing on the fold right here. So if yours has the facing on the fold, you're going to just want to make sure you know exactly where the center front line is. And we're going to trace around the perimeter, and we're going to stop at our center front line here. I'm going to put a weight down here. Make sure you don't forget your pocket marking, your dart, any notches that you need. I lost my, my hole didn't pop out all the way. We'll just go all the way down. Okay. This is my pocket right here, and this is my dart. All right, we don't really need that notch down there. We just need it really so that we can draw in our center front line, which my ruler's not long enough for. We have our center front. All right, so let's talk about the placket. So this is the kind of look I'm going for right here, right? So I'm going for a little placket. If you have the Ellsworth by Merchant and Mills, that pattern has a collar with a collar stand, but you could just trace off that whole placket situation right onto your camp shirt. Copy the placket pieces, the cut opening, and then you could use your camp shirt collar on your pattern with no other changes. You're totally good to go there. Is there a trick to screw punch? Sometimes when I use it, it will shift just before the holes punch. Oh, it'll shift just before the... Make sure that this is screwed on really good, not too tight, but make sure it's screwed on really tight, because I have found that it will do that sometimes. So... You've been traveling, went back to yesterday's stream to draft my collar. Fun. Camp dress muslin. Nice. I'm so excited to see your dress. Oh, I was going to show a dress option. If we have time at the end. It's only 12:15. Wow. We've made a lot of progress. Yeah, I'm not sure. I used to have that problem too. It could be that is your punch at all have a nick in it? Your tip? Try another tip. You know, you can unscrew it and add another tip to it and maybe see if that solves it. And make sure you clean out the little, the chads. Yeah, mine used to do that too, and it doesn't do that anymore. I forgot about that. I honestly think it's probably the surface of the table. There might be something that's kind of pushing, like, because remember this is the tip is screwing. So if it catches something, it might travel a little bit. All right. So the popover placket. Now, if you were doing a button band, right, it would be all the way down, right? It would be the same thing. It's the exact same situation up here. The only thing different is that we're putting the lower part of the garment on the fold, and now we need a space to sew on this placket. We couldn't build it in and have it fold over because the other half of the shirt is in the way, right? It's a skill. Why do I drop the shoulder a bit? What do you mean? Where did I drop the shoulder? Are you present in the timeline, Julie? Maybe you're asking about something else that I was just doing. Why do I drop the shoulder? I don't know. Where? Okay, let me get my ruler situation. I have new rulers. I'm just like... I always have separate rulers. You'll see me switch between. So if you're kind of new here and new to drafting, I always have one that I use that goes against my ruler. but I have one that is clean. See, this one's clean. And the reason is because when I measure things like this, I don't get a line. Well, I do because I've accidentally used this, but watch if I use this one. It's like, it really messes up my paper. It's just the thing. On your draft, I'm pondering, why do I drop the shoulder yesterday while drafting? You mean this way? When I did the drop shoulder for the camp shirt? The camp shirt, yeah, exactly what Kirsty said. You don't have to. I just offered it as an option. You can stick with your button-up shirt sleeve. In fact, if you're feeling a little overwhelmed by that whole draft, I would keep your shirt sleeve at the shoulder here. I would keep all that the same. If you just want a little bit more circumference and you add to the circumference on your side seam, just add that amount on your sleeve, you know, at the sides. I'm looking for my sleeve pattern. And then you'll mimic it. Oh, hi Zeb, welcome. Yeah, I do live streams as well. Welcome. This is kind of like the day 2 of drafting a camp collar. All right, so the popover. All right, so stick with me on this one. All right, so we have our collar, right? And we need a placket here. So I'm going to recommend that you keep your placket to 1 inch, especially if this is the first time you're doing this. We're going to keep this pretty straightforward. Now our collar is not going to change because the collar goes to the center and that's where it's going to stop. And on the placket, which is the middle of the placket, on this placket, we're going to make it 1 inch wide. So let's look at our shirt here. We have our center line. For our placket to be 1 inch wide, it's going to be a 1/2 inch on either side of this center line. All right. Now we're not going to cut out a hole that size because we need seam allowance on this piece. We need to know the depth of our placket, and we already know our width, which is the 1 inch, right? So if this placket were here, sewn already there, we would know that this shirt needs seam allowance going toward the placket, right? So let's say we gave it a 1/4 inch seam allowance on either side. So 1 inch minus the 1/4 inch here and the 1/4 inch here equals a 1/2 inch. So now we know this space right here needs to be a 1/2 inch wide that we're going to cut out of our shirt here. So as far as the length goes, I think I figured that out yesterday. So let's see, the one I'm using, yeah, is going to be I think 4 3/4 inches long. For this, any length you do, as long as you have enough to put a couple buttons on, is going to be enough to be able to get this over your head. So what I would focus on is what visually that you like as far as the length goes on your button placket. So for me, I'm going for something like 4.5 to 5 inches long finished. All right, I'm going to use a little pencil just a little bit so I don't muck up the draft here, and let's zoom in a tiny bit. Zoom, there we go. Let's do that. The lighting's still okay for you guys? So I don't want the paper to be too bright. Let's see, how's my pencil's gonna be. I think about Jen Stern. Jen Stern has such good camera quality on her pencil. I'm always like, she can use a pencil in all of her demos. I love it. All right, so we want this placket, the cutout right here, we want that cutout to be a 1/2 inch wide. Our pattern is on the fold, so we only need to trim off a 1/4 inch. I'm looking you in the eyes while I say this. All right, so we're gonna draw a parallel line to center front a 1/4 inch away. All right, now we're going to go down the finished length that we want. So here is our neck seam, right? My neck seam has a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So let's go down 4 3/4 inches down, right? So that's our finished opening. Now, the finished opening for the length needs some seam allowance too. So we're gonna go up. We're gonna add a 1/4 inch to that bottom edge there. We've already done that over here because really this is our placket width right here. And this is our seam allowance. All right, so this amount right here, we're gonna cut our shirt on this line. when we cut this out. And that's it. That's all there is to it to create the placket for the placket opening, right? For the placket pieces themselves, I would like a clean piece of paper, please. I say that like I have a studio assistant here. All right, here's a piece of paper. So remember, we're sticking with our placket being 1 inch wide. I'm gonna leave this on the screen just so you can kind of look at that right there, right? We want our placket to be 1 inch finished wide. So if we have a 1 inch finished wide placket, we also need to put it on the fold. We don't really want a seam along the edge of the placket. It's gonna create unnecessary bulk. If you're doing, say you're doing like a plaid shirt and you would love some visual interest by putting your placket on the bias, if your fabric isn't very heavy, then I might consider putting my placket, I have a seam on the end here. This is the edge that's gonna be sewn to the body right here. And this is the open edge of it. Then maybe I'd consider putting a seam there because it's going to stabilize the perimeter of your placket a little better if it's on the bias, all right? We're getting fancy when we're talking about that, but that's what I did on the Ellsworth shirt by Merchant and Mills when I sewed it back in like November or December. That placket's on the bias and it does get a little bit like crazy. You can interface the heck out of it, which will help too if you just want to keep it simple. So, all right, so now we have our placket here. We need it to be on the fold, so now we have another inch. We also need 1/4 inch seam allowance or whatever seam allowance we plan to do on either side. And now we need to decide, is our placket going to hang down? So let's say, I already drew over that. Let's do this a little bit smaller. So here's our camp collar, right? Why did I draw that like that? So here is our placket. This is what it actually looks like, right? Here's the buttons. Here's the collar. It's gigantic. What if we wanted something decorative down here? We need to know, like, we can just stop the placket at an opening like that, or we could do this kind of like a tower placket on a shirt. We could do something like this, right? Something like that. This is Hi, Blue Magilla, how's it going? Oh, I'm so glad. Okay, so if you want something like this, then we need to add that to the bottom of our pattern piece here. And we can do it just like a tower placket on a shirt, which some of you have done. And then the under placket would just end here. So this side would look like this, essentially like this, but it's going to go a little below so that we can catch all this hoo-ha under there, right? So this, we're looking at this kind of in an X-ray view, but obviously this one right here is going to be underneath like that, right? And this is our little decorative house. I like to call that a house. So we can do that, or we can just do it straight across, kind of like the Ellsworth. I actually think, I know this looks fancier and it's got a little extra drafting, but it's easier to sew because you get to turn everything under and top stitch it down. Whereas this right here, you have to get this nice clean edge in the shirt there, and say you're using a linen or something that's kind of getting away from you, it can be a little fiddly. So we're gonna opt for this tower style placket, and then we're gonna make the other side as well. All right, so now, we're going to measure our opening. So now remember, let's draw my pencil line in here. The finished opening is my pencil line here. The black heavy line here is the cut line and the raw edge of the fabric. So we need a piece that's going to actually go the length of this sewing line, right? Which is 5 inches for me, a tiny bit over. And then if we want that house, I think like, you know, like let's say our house looks a little bit like that. Something like, let's look at that. I'm gonna put my house an inch below and maybe the point a 1/2 inch down. we'll stick with our geometry. So that's kind of my plan there, right? And it'll look like this when it's sewn. Like that, all right? I show it to you illustrating it this way, is that way, like if you kind of get overwhelmed by all the details, stick to what you know. You know what it finishes. Draw your finished placket. So let's just draw our finished placket. All right, so we have a 1-inch wide placket. We're going to put a neck at the top. We know we want it to be 5 inches long, right? So we'll do that across. Break it down. Always just break it down once you start kind of going, oh my goodness, I'm not sure where I'm at. Break it down to what you know. You know what you want it to finish, right? So we have that's our little placket. And now we're gonna put the house on there. So we're gonna go down here, and then we're gonna find the center, and we're gonna go 1/2 inch below that, and that's our point. So we have our upside down house, right? And there's our finished placket. So now what do we need? We need seam allowance, and we need the underside of the placket. So let's add our neck here. We'll go over because we're going to add our other placket. We need our seam allowance on this side. We need our seam allowance on our house. And now we need our under placket. It doesn't need to be this fancy. So let's draw the underside of this one. So we're going to go over 1 inch for our placket width. We'll add our 1/4 inch for our seam allowance, right? And now as far as this side goes on here, as long as we end this underside, because it's folded under, below the house point. So let's go like 1/2 inch below our opening here. Let's actually go 1/2 inch, and then we're going to add a 1/4 inch seam allowance to that, just like that. And so now we have our house, goes down to that. We have this kind of all this extra right here, and that's what happens. And this is our perimeter of our placket piece, and that's it. We broke it down. See, I almost used my good ruler. I'm going to draw the perimeter of it for you in Sharpie. So if you've ever sewn something like the Fairfield, actually we have a little straight edge right here, so we're going to also do that. If you've ever sewn like the Fairfield button-up tower placket on the sleeve, or if you've ever watched my video, she does hers where she folds all this. So you can do that way. You can make this squared off right here. What's nice about that is that it's easier to cut out, but you have a little bit of origami that you have to do when you go to sew it. And so I like to just put the shape in there so I know what I'm dealing with. But there are lots of ways to sew tower plackets on things, and you'll see lots of variations on that. So if you think about this as a men's shirt sleeve cuff, right? And the cuff is down here. That's what we're talking about. It's an upside down version. Oh, nice, Deb. That's awesome. I'm sorry, I'm not noticing all the chat. I'm kind of focused. Waves and Wild Darjeeling. Oh, for my daughter. Oh, nice. Shem does a lot of children's wear. There's a lot of people that do a lot of children's wear here, actually. All right, so that is our right front placket. Right front. If you're buttoning right over left. If you want to button left over right, I want you to take this, flip it over, and now it is your left front placket. All right? You heard me, right? This is right front, buttoning left over right. I'm sorry. Did I just say that wrong? Right over left. We're buttoning right over left. Buttoning right over left. Okay, so this is this one. And now we're going to make our under placket. And I'm just going to kind of utilize these lines here because, you know, they're there. We're going to make this the same width. So it's 2.5 inches. And we're just gonna take the length from this under placket here, just like this. And now we have our under placket. So basically the under placket's gonna be 1 inch wide, plus the underside of it, another 1 inch, and you need a 1/4 inch seam allowance on each side. That's another 1/2 inch, that's 2.5 inches wide. And we want it to be this length here. So often when I draft things, I just kind of connect them. This helps me kind of go, are things looking square? Are they looking true? So they're, you know, I don't have a parallelogram. When you're doing really small pieces, it's really easy to get things askew. So you just want to make sure you have some reference points. And so now that's our plackets right there. Just like this. Now when you cut these out, you have two. You have this right front and left front. You can interface the whole thing unless your fabric is kind of heavy, like say it's a quilting cotton or something. I would decide if I want to interface it or not. Quilting cotton and up, I might put a little bit on 1/2 of it, but I don't really think you need to interface the whole thing. So that's kind of how I feel about that. And we're done. That's it. So then when we cut this pattern piece out, you're going to put the lower part here on the fold. And this is a really good example of why I like cutting this particular pattern piece out on the unfolded piece of paper. Be a lot more accurate because we need to trim away this little placket right here when we go to cut it out, right? So our pattern piece really looks like this. And getting that little tiny cutout accurate, so putting this lower part on the fold and getting this spacing correct is a little tricky. So when you go to cut it out, make sure that this little space here is a 1/2 inch wide. And what you can do, this is a little gift to your future self. We're gonna put this over here so we don't lose it. We're gonna measure this. So this opening needs to be 1/2 inch by 4 3/4 inch when it's on the fabric, folded, and we're trimming that little box, okay? I love telling myself that because then I'm really more about that. Like say I'm cutting something and it's like linen or rayon, oh my goodness, and it's kind of getting all over the place. You're gonna want that little reference. All right, I'm gonna cut my shirt out. If you guys want to stay for that, you can. But that's the draft. Do you guys have any questions or any other things you'd like to add to your camp shirt? I'm going to be sewing mine on Saturday. I'm clearing the decks here. A lot going on. Let me zoom out. There's probably some new people here from the Sew Over 50 post that I did today, so welcome. Sorry I haven't liked and commented and replied to a lot of your comments yet. All right, so I don't need this piece. I need you, and you. They are, Zeb. Yeah, and there's also speed controls. So I would, if you're rewatching a live stream, I'd up that speed. I just dropped a collar down here. And let me move all this off over here. I don't need these, so we're gonna hang these guys up. Oh, that was the end. This is the problem with pattern hooks. Look at that. They break. This is why I give them away on my website. It's really annoying. I don't know why these have to have a lifespan at all. The ones I had, I still have ones from like when I was almost in college. They're fine. All right, so I need my under collar, my top collar, my sleeve, yoke, plackets, lower back, center front. I've done my hems. I'm going to get rid of all of this so I don't accidentally use it. And I ironed my fabric yesterday. I'm a little bit worried about my hands, or they're kind of filthy right now. Hi Ray, how's it going? How are you? Oh, dress versions. Yeah, Mullen, unless you wanted to do a like the kind like Libby's doing, you know, where like, you know, where you turn this into right. That's a polo style placket. Here we go. There we go. Something like that. So what I would do if you were going to do something like that, oh, I don't know if I have the right, I'm going to get my little miniatures here. I don't think I have a pant that is the proper scale to these pieces here. My pant is a little too small for the scale of this, but we're going to use it as an example. So if I were doing something like this and I had some kind of pant, I would probably find the waist on my pattern piece and I would just use this as a guide, the torso of my pant. Unless you have a skirt. A skirt would be great too. So that you have some sort of idea of how big that your lower portion needs to be and your length. And I would use it kind of as a guide. Do you redraw or draft each time you use the block? Or do you put the block onto fabric and add seam allowances to go? Do you redraw each time you use the block? What do you mean by that? What do you mean redraw what? Question above. I'm going to about using a block without seam allowance. Oh, well, on my block, I have seam allowance built in. If you're new to drafting, that's when I recommend take off the seam allowance and just add it each time. That way it's a non-issue. You don't have to do extra math. You don't have to keep track of it. You don't have to accidentally forget it. I guarantee you're going to accidentally forget that a piece has seam allowance when you didn't know it. So that's my recommendation. If you're new to drafting, remove all your seam allowances from your pieces, especially if you're using a block or a sloper to start from. Keep that one pure, as like one place I used to work, they called it a pure pattern when it didn't have seam allowance, and then just use that. And then you can add whatever seam allowance you want, because say you're going to overlock it one day, you might want 3/8 inch seams, and if you're going to French seam it another day, you want 5/8 inch seams. So yeah, awesome, Ray. Yeah, so I feel like this isn't a really good, this doesn't really show you the scale, but yeah, I would put this kind of, you know, this would actually fit my waist here, right? And I would kind of use it as a little guideline. I made it this small so it would fit on my whiteboard. I should make one that's a little bigger. Yeah, and if you wanted a dress with a skirt, yeah, I would put your line where you like. Like, obviously, I wear a lot of high-waisted things. I'm kind of rethinking that lately. Like this is the Mayo Sodas dress. It's very high-waisted. I'd put that waistline where I want. And for your skirt, you can just make it, you know, a rectangle. And I would make this waist length for the skirt 1.5 what your waist is. So if this waist here measures 36 inches, or say the front measures, it measures 22 inches across, side seam to side seam. On the fold, it measures 11 inches, okay? So let's say your bodice right here measures 11 inches. And your skirt here, here's your center, I would take that 11 that's on this side here, times it by 1.5, and that's how long I would make this, and then I'd put it on the fold. So I use 1.5 as kind of my default for gathers because it's not too much, it's not too little. So do you plan it and then draw a next version of the pattern? Are you talking about when I'm making my sloper? Okay, Kirsty. Nice seeing you. All right, when I'm making my sloper, I don't think that's what you're asking me. When do you plan it and then draw a next version of the pattern? Do I plan what? And then draw a next version? Do you mean like if I make changes? I'm sorry, Ray. You could also do princess seams, by the way. I need a piece of paper. I just put one in here. Where was that piece of paper? Now let's say you have a bodice. And you have a, let's say you have a bust dart and a waist dart, right? You have a skirt like this. This is like classic pattern drafting, right? You could make this into a princess seam dress, which would be really cute. Like think about this without the waist seam, and you could do a little princess seam, or even to the shoulder if you want, a more traditional look, something like that. But you know, here's your side front, and here is your front, right? That just goes along the darts. Ray means how to get a new pattern from a block. Trace off the block and make changes on the new pattern. Add seam. Do you plan all the seam allowances and then they change again the next time you sew again, or do you start from that silver again? I think when I'm doing a sloper, the sloper has no style lines on it, so it's kind of a blank canvas. So if I'm starting from a sloper, it's going to need the most pattern work. It has nothing. It's just a blueprint of me. If I'm starting from an actual pattern I've sewn, like we did with the camp shirt yesterday and the button-up shirt, that already has seam allowances in it. If I felt like it, I would trim them all off, and then I would use that to do my draft, right? So what Mullen said, okay, I think Ray means how to get a new pattern from a block, trace off the block and make changes on the new paper, add seam. I would add seam allowances last, exactly what Mullen said. So the difference between starting with an actual existing sewing pattern and a sloper is pretty big, because the actual existing pattern is something you've sewn before, you're really familiar with it, it has style lines that you have to work around, whereas a sloper doesn't. It needs everything. But it also is more neutral because it doesn't have anything to kind of influence the design. You have to add everything to it. And then yes, in a sloper without seam allowance, you add it every time, because like I said, what if you were using your sloper to draft a knit dress, and then the next day you were drafting a pair of non-stretch jeans? Those are completely different seam allowances, right? Yeah, exactly, Ray. Yeah, I just suggest that because if I were a beginner, I really wanted to get into drafting, or you really want this to go, like you're feeling a little bit like there's too many details, remove all the seam allowance and then go from there. Removing the seam allowances is a very short step to curtail a lot of frustration and extra problems, because if you're also going to do this without sewing a sample, you're really going to want to make sure everything works. And then I would walk my seams and things. And you don't see me walk my seams a lot because I'm really confident and I kind of know. And that's just experience, right? So I'm not trying to be cocky. I'm just trying to say that you can skip the steps you're comfortable skipping. All right, so here's my eyelet. It's a very basic, simple eyelet that I got at a mill-in store. But I'm getting so excited about having it. having this eyelet version. And I don't think I'll be able to get my shirt across on the fold. Yeah, I won't be able to. So I'm gonna have to cut it separate. But I can get, like, I can do my, oh, I don't need that. Oh yeah, I do. I need this. I need this. My sleeve won't even fit over there. Yeah, sure, Ray, and I'll help you anytime. I don't know. This eyelet looks so basic compared to some of the ones you guys have been showing in the guild lately. Oh my goodness. I need to make some space for me. Oh, you know what I don't have is my pocket. We'll just do that later. As long as I'm ready to sew by Saturday, right? So I actually don't have all day. I have something. Quick Fit is going to be so good tomorrow. I'm so excited about it. I feel like that's always my warning when I'm really excited about something. It's definitely not been quick. But are we surprised? Just trying to get this at a amount that works. Yeah, I'm hoping it's cotton. I actually don't know. When you buy stuff from Mill Inn, this is a place like just outside of Portland, Oregon. It's anybody's guess. There's not a whole lot of information. Oh, you can't. What about putting it on the bias, Terry? Could you do that? I'm kind of looking at my eyelets there. I'm going to fold this kind of in the middle of the eyelets. Do I need to pattern match this? I don't, right? Oh, give me a clean, it's time for a clean ruler. I used to buy these by the dozen. They came in a box. That sounds great, Ray. And that actually sounds like a good timeline, to be honest. Who needs a pocket anyway, Terry? Honestly. As someone who's always trying to downplay the size of my bust, sometimes I'm always like, do I really need a pocket, you know? And maybe I don't on this. Maybe putting a pocket on this would actually make it look more, well, actually, maybe putting a pocket on it would make it look less polo-like. Fresh ruler. I have to admit, a fresh ruler is almost more exciting than a fresh rotary blade. All right, so we're putting this on the fold here. With eyelet, the fabric can is a little wonky sometimes because, you know, it's embroidered. You can really see it in the selvage usually. I, for the life of me, could not figure out the right and wrong side. So remember, I'm looking for this nice parallel opening here. And if you are a little nervous about cutting out your garment with this opening, if you're doing, maybe none of you are doing this, cut it afterward if you want. That's fine too. Just maybe mark the center of the bottom like this so you know. Or a fresh sewing machine. Yeah, that's true. That's funny. Do you have a pocket protector too? I don't think I've ever seen a pocket protector in real life. Ooh, I am so excited. I think I'll definitely need a little camisole under this. I'm not sure. My paper bin is already kind of full. Tell you what, I have to make some mulch mats really soon. My fabric bin is getting really full. All right, so let's do the notch. I just lift it up like this so I don't go into the fabric too far. I pull it up so that I know I got the bottom layer like that. And then, do I want a pocket or no? You know, on the eyelet, what do we think about that? I might skip it on the eyelet. I'm gonna think about that. I can always add it later. It's just such a pain, you know? Cutting a hole in my holy fabric. It's not really cutting it very good. I'm just going to put a pin there so I know that's where the hole is. And now let's cut this little opening here. Making sure. Go smaller than bigger. Go smaller than bigger because your placket can only do so much work. Like it can't stretch, you know, it can't fill in fabric that's not there. So I'm going to lift up this little edge here. Can you see? You probably can't even see that. And then now I can kind of go straight down past it like that. All right. I love eyelet. Same, Jan. I love eyelet. Let's do the back. Yeah, it's funny. I was thinking about the pocket the other day and I was like, what if I did something that was like, what if it had, you know, it was like a little pocket, but the top hem folded to the right side and maybe had a little scallop, and I was like, I don't know about it on eyelet, you know? Julie. Who was just doing that? Was that you, Jan, that was just padding out your form? Wait, who was just doing that? That was good tips on there. Checking how parallel I am here. I'm just cutting it off. That way I can flip the fabric over like this. And let's make sure my eyelet is straight, because even though I made sure it was on grain, I really want to make sure also that the eyelet looks straight on the body. That's kind of more important to me. All right, let's put this on the fold. I'm excited about the gathered back. I saw this little top in that show, that Firefly Lane show. I'm probably not even remembering it correctly. You know how you get really fixated on a garment from something? You get really into it and you just love it. And then, like, I don't know, a long time into this obsession and, you know, effort to recreate it, you go back and you look at it and you're like, oh, that's nothing like what I thought. But you like your fantasy version better, so you stick with it, right? That's what it's all about. Vent, gathered, and then we're just going to do a little nip at the center back. Ooh. Punch my holes. Hang them up. So don't worry if you want like help sewing your camp collar. I'm going to show you that. I won't be sewing mine the same way. In fact, mine is going to be really interesting because of the button placket. So that's gonna be cool. When I sew the tropical shirt by Wardrobe by Me in a couple of weeks, actually I think a couple of weeks exactly, I'm gonna show you how to sew a traditional camp style shirt. The only difference with that shirt is it has a yoke. So, all right, let's see if I can get my sleeves across this piece here. I think I can. Yeah, no problem. Or my friend says, no prob. I know that there's probably not any point to it, but I am keeping all of my pieces right side up in relation to the fabric. I don't really, instead of figuring out if there's a, you know, a one-way design, I'm just gonna cut it all one way. I'm gonna stack my eyelets a little more. So if you have a camp shirt and it has a button band and not a facing, a front or back facing, I will be sewing this one like that. Julie's trying to type your name. I could probably get my plackets out of that. I'm just going to do the front notch and the shoulder notch. Oh, there it is right there. Okay. You know, speaking of seam allowance, I haven't decided how I'm going to finish my seams. Huh. Did I just create a problem for myself? Maybe. Oh, smart, Terry. So I'm not going to use interfacing. I'm going to use fabric in this because of the eyelet. Now I could use this selvage right here. That might be wide enough. Oh yeah, maybe I'll do that. Okay. I'll use the selvage of the eyelet for my, this is going to really make my eyelet look, I mean my placket look straight or not. This is tricky. You know, if I were clever, I would have made my placket short with no buttons planned or buttonholes planned. Just like a little nicely finished, you know, placket opening. And I could have just left the eyelet. It would have been cute, you know. I'm going to center my placket on this unembroidered whole section. Okay, I'm going to save that for the interfacing potential. I think you could really agonize over how to deal with the eyelet portion of this, but I'm not going to. Once it's sewn, no one will know. right? So this is how it'll look, like this. I'm gonna have those little flowers. Oh, you can't even see. You know what I mean? Yep, exactly. Autocorrect, or autocarrot as usually Ray says. All right, so I'm just cutting this in the selvage to use the fabric as interfacing. It'll probably blend in the most. Someone from our guild made a really pretty eyelet button-down shirt last year, Adrian. And I remember us talking a lot about this, like how to deal with the fact that the eyelet, you know, you're going to see anything you put on it. I can't remember what she did. I feel like this is what she decided to do too. I'm going to pin that to it. And now let's cut this underside less critical. I'm going to center, yeah, I'm going to center one side over that bit. And I only have the collars and the yoke to cut out. I wonder if I can get collar interfacing. Maybe, maybe not. Like out of the selvage. Oh, that sounds so cute, Jan. This one doesn't have a scalloped edge. All right, do we have enough? Probably not to do the yoke this way, but we could do it sideways. I still need interfacing for the left front placket. Let's move all this junk over here. We need 2 yokes. Okay. Do I save as much fabric as possible and cut a little bit into the selvage here? I could do that on the inner yoke, you know? I kind of want to, because that way I have this extra down here. I still need my collars, that's about it. And as for my collars, I think I'll probably go across the grain. Not across the grain, but you know what I mean, stick with the grain line. Yeah, I think I'm gonna do that. Okay, maybe I shouldn't cut it that close. So is anyone else making a camp shirt with us? So you're welcome to join. We have a sew along happening in the guild. You don't have to join the guild to be in the sew along, but it's gonna be really fun. We started this in June. It's all summer long, so you have plenty of time. We're gonna have 3 Zooms, so you can come and sew with us or get like help or get questions asked and answered. It's free to join the guild. And then there's resources with lots of shirt ideas, and everyone's posting like what they're making. They're all a really chill bunch. It's like the only social media I really enjoy now. All right, let's put this on the fold. I'm gonna slide this way down, way down. We want as much as possible. Goodness. I wouldn't even consider the guild social media. That's why I like it. Okay, that was a little too much resistance at that angle. I'm not going to take a chance on that. Go like this, away from the shirt so I don't accidentally cut into it. All right, I'm going to nip at the center back neck, center bottom of the yoke, and then right here where my gathers go to. There we go, there's my yokes. And we just need the collars now and that one facing. Adina's back, whoop whoop. YouTube stop, I'm not running an ad. Yeah, right, Mullen? I think it's in the seam allowance. Thanks, Mullen. Oh, nice, Terry. Cranking. You have bigger fish to fry, Adina. You don't have to download the app. You can do it on the computer, Zeb. There is an app if you like apps, like on an iPad or your Android phone or whatever, but you don't have to. You can just do it on the computer. It's actually nicer on the computer even. So, all right, we just have the colors. Nice big, like probably 3/4 of a yard left here. Think we can get 2 collars like this across? Maybe. I'm lining up my eyelet here so I get the widest part. That's actually making it line up kind of funky. So let's do this. Yeah, you'll see a lot of these people in there too. Do I hand sew my buttons? I do. Yeah. So I just got a foot for my Bernina because I was buying a foot for something else. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to splurge and get this button foot because you know me, I'm not big on hand sewing. I don't mind hand sewing buttons on. I honestly find it just as fast as using the machine, so that's why I do it. But with the foot, I have found, look at the, yeah. Let's try and get this, make sure we cut this. Look at that, that's more like the grain. Because of the, or not the grain, but the embroidery. Look at the curve. Let's see, can I fit that in there? Oh, I can, okay. So I really like a woven shank on all my buttons unless they're not functional. I just really think that space between the button and the garment, I feel like this is so like arrogant to say that I always like a shank on my buttons, but I do. They last a lot longer. I enjoy weaving the shank, and I actually kind of enjoy the process. It's like one of the rare things I like to hand sew and I really like to do. So I do hand sew them, and I got the foot, which actually works really great, and there's even a little like tongue, so it will hold the threads above your button while it sews the button on. And then there's a space, so then you can just weave that shank. The thing is, now you have the 4 tails from sewing on the button, and you have to deal with the hand sewing threads of weaving the shank. So the last time I did it, I did an experiment where I left really long tails on the machine, and I used those to weave the shank, and that was better. I still don't think that it saved me time sewing it on with the machine. Yeah, and I broke 2 buttons using it recently on one shirt. Oh yeah, then just use that thing. It's great. I gave a, oh yeah, you like that? What was it, my folding tutorial? People love that thing. Yeah, me too, Terry. It's one of the ones I really love. People give me a hard time that I don't like to hand sew, but I weave all the shanks of my buttons. Yeah, so this, right now I'm following the eyelets. I don't know if you guys can see, but you can see how they form kind of a vertical let's see, can you see the verticalness of these flowers? So I know that the fabric looks kind of crazy, but these are the rows of my flowers. I'll line up the flowers with the grid on the table so you can kind of tell. And they're still kind of doing something funky, and that's the embroidery fighting the grain. So I'm just trying to get the collar to work with the embroidery. But the funny thing is, like, this one is on here, and this one's, okay, so this one's on this row. Yeah, this is kind of like, we're gonna pull a little bit diagonally, get this a little bit. So there's also, look, the horizontal up and down. See that? So that's what I'm also looking at. I'm going, okay. Could be a reason why this was at mill end. Just saying. They don't usually have like first quality, or they usually have either that or they have like huge quantities from people that were manufacturing and stuff. Who knows why this was there? I got my fabric for my my cashmere auburn blazer there, and the lining. I love that thing. Although I don't think I wore it much this winter. Just realized that. Okay, this is my top collar. I'm going to show you that one thing I did on my under collar. So if you like to cut your pieces and put the pattern pieces away and have the cut fabric by your side, and you can't tell your top from your under collar, I always put a double notch at the neck of the under collar. You see that right there? So there's one on either side of the center back. So the top collar has a single notch, the under collar has a double. That's how I keep track of them. Yeah, I love that. I've been kind of in a snap phase. Oh, you guys, my dish towels with the snaps work so good. The snap is a little heavy for the fabric. The ring snap, the one ring snap I did, it pulled off, it broke. And so I brought it to the shop the next day, and I kind of gave it another one. But the other ones, they hang so nice. It's so well balanced, you know, and you can't even tell it's there. I love it. But I think, like Barbara said, my next one, I'm gonna do some buttons and buttonholes and just suck it up, you know, and do that. This is my under collar. This needs some, or the top collar still needs some interfacing plus my button placket, and then I'm done. It's like magic, isn't it? Okay. So we need interfacing from this piece and this piece, and we're done. Let's hang up these pattern pieces so they're out of the way. The manila is still a little bit curly, you know. Do I have some scraps with the... Well, maybe I'll just do that off camera. Here's one. Here's one. Is that long enough? Ooh. Yeah, there we go. I'm glad I ironed the selvage yesterday of this fabric. I was like, the eyelet doesn't even go into the selvage. Why are you going to iron that? And I was like, because it'll be easier to cut it, Saremy. We had this conversation together, you know. All right. We're going to, where's my, here it is. I'm just going to pin all these together so I don't lose them. This is so light. That's my collars. My collar, I'll probably use the bed sheet, maybe this. This is so heavy. Yeah, exactly, Adina. Yeah, that worked really good. Like the handle of my drawer is just so slippery. Is this gonna fit? Not gonna work. I could use another piece of eyelet, but I just think it'll look a little bit, I don't know. Let's look at the fabric. So if we put, let's say we did the collar with a piece of eyelet in between, right? We're gonna see that. If I put the bed sheet or the, you know, the sheet fabric, I think that might look better. I don't, Libby, but you know what? I think I have some Bemberg. That's a good call. Oh, what is this? Yeah, I have a little piece of Bemberg. A very little piece, not enough. I really need to get some silk organza. Yeah, I don't have one. What are you going to take apart and make a shirt from? Oh, you don't have to. Oh, yeah, yeah. You don't want to finish it? Well, I'll cut this out, and then if I don't want to use it, I don't have to, right? I already had a piece of fabric cut. We're gonna stick with the cross grain though. This is the undercollar. I can actually see it. The sheet's lightweight enough, but you know, it is a sheet. You know, it's a little tighter woven. I do think it'll drape nicer than using an interfacing. Does that fabric store you go to in Sacramento have stuff like silk organza, Libby? I don't really need the notches. I don't know why I just did that. Here we go. All right. Oh, okay. Well, you know what? I have been exercising and I can't fit any of my clothes, so the world's a different place than it was a few years ago. I feel your pain on that. All right, you guys. I'm ready. I'm so excited about my little eyelet camp shirt. I was going to use this ruler fabric right here that I got. I got this at Hearts. It was kind of an impulse buy. And I was going to do it on the bias. You know, look at all these rainbow rulers. Wouldn't that be cute? Maybe I still will. I love the idea of, yeah, maybe I will. I even think the pullover version would be really cute, you know? Yeah, that's true, Ray, exactly. Maybe I'll go look in my stash next door. Okay, well, if you have any comments or ask questions, you know, just put them in the comment section. I'll try and help you out. Or ask in the guild if you're in the guild, especially join the Camp Shirt Sew Along group. It's free to join that in the guild. It's on the left side. So if you join and you're like, oh my God, this is a big space. It is, but it's very consistent, thankfully. Just go to the left side of the guild under Guild Feed and Chat. It says Summer Camp Sew Along. Just pick that, join that. And then you'll see across the top of that group little tabs. The feed, which means like where people post. There's an event section where the Zooms are scheduled. There's a resource tab where there's all these like all these camp shirt patterns. So you can look at a bunch all next to each other and find one for you. Stuff like that. What is tomorrow? Friday at 4 p.m. Tomorrow, it's at 4 p.m., not at 10 a.m. I thought it was at 10 a.m. We have a quick fit tomorrow. If you're in the apprentice group or any of the paid groups, there is a quick fit tomorrow. And I'm going to be doing default measurements. I'm looking it up. One of these days, maybe I should just do, show you guys the guild on a live stream. I'm trying to, it's like a little slow because I'm streaming, I think. I don't know what's going on. I can't click events. I can't click events. Let's go to quick fit. There we go. It is a 10, okay. Yeah, 10 a.m. for me. I don't know about you guys. Yeah, 10 a.m. So yeah, tomorrow I have made a really amazing PDF for you guys. You're gonna get it this afternoon. And I created all these default measurements. I'm not talking about like the typical like measurement guides where they have you put in all your measurements. No, we're talking about all the things that you like. You're like, I love this length of these pants. This is the length of my pants. I'm never gonna make my pants this length, any other length. You can, this is the place you're gonna put it. So there's like the inseam length for your favorite leggings, your favorite trousers, your favorite jeans, your favorite whatever. There's the rise lengths in there. There's pocket openings. There's, oh, I love my shirts to be this much across the shoulders. So if I'm drafting something where I wanna check the shoulders on this pattern I bought, is it 17 inches? Awesome. Oh, it's 18 inches. Great. I already know I need to bring it in. So stuff like that. And then I'm going to show you how to measure some of these things, and we're going to put it in there, and it'll be a little PDF guide. And if you're really nerdy like me, you can get the I have a notebook size version. So I have a little tiny binder. I'm going to put mine in my tiny binder. So anyway, that's in the quick fit tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific. So. No, Adina, but there is the schedule for the month. I don't do it for the year. Oh, do you mean for skill building sessions? Yes. Skill building sessions are planned out for the whole year. And if you go to skill building sessions, the monthlies have a calendar in there. If you can't see it, you should be able to. You can just ask me. So for me, it is 1:23 p.m. I'm in California, Zeb. Yeah, and if you're in the guild and you see an event, you don't need to translate the time zone. It shows you the time in your time zone, like if you look at an event in there. But for me, I am in Pacific, and you will see me say that, so I'm sorry. I will convert millimeters and centimeters and inches when I can, but I can't convert time zone. So, all right, well, thanks for coming, you guys. I will see you Saturday. 11 a.m. Pacific, same time, same place, and I'll be sewing this, hanging out and sewing, so if you want to hang out and sew your camp shirt or whatever you're sewing, I don't care, you can, and that would be awesome. Then 2 weeks from today, I'm going to be sewing, the day before 2 weeks from today, I'm going to be cutting out the tropical shirt by Wardrobe by Me. The next day I'm going to be sewing the whole thing. I might do a part 1, part 2, maybe I should. I don't have anything planned for that Saturday. It's kind of left open right now, so. Thanks, Mullen. Thank you for that. I'm so glad, Zeb. Yeah, thanks for coming. All right, you guys. I'll see you guys soon, and good luck on your drafting. Just let me know if you have any questions. All right, good luck. Bye.